A snowy night in a cozy harbor village. Settle in. Let the day begin to loosen. The way tension fades from your shoulders when you finally stop moving. There is nothing you need to do now, nowhere you need to go. The night has already taken care of everything. Outside, snow is falling over a quiet harbor village. It isn't a heavy snowfall. It doesn't rush or swirl. It drifts down slowly, steady and patient, settling over rooftops, along narrow streets, and across the wooden docks that stretch out into still water. The air is cold but gentle, carrying a faint trace of salt and wood, softened by distance. The village has already gone quiet for the night. Windows are dark, doors are closed. The last sounds of the evening have long since faded, leaving behind a calm that feels complete. If you listen closely, you can hear the harbor. Not clearly, not all at once, just a low, steady presence beneath the quiet. Water shifting softly against wood, the faintest movement, repeating without effort. You imagine walking slowly along one of the village streets, where the ground is covered in a thin layer of fresh snow. Each step presses down gently, then disappears again into stillness. The road slopes slightly downward, guiding you toward the shoreline without needing to be followed. Lanterns remain lit in only a few places now, their glow softened by the falling snow. Light gathers close to where it begins, fading quickly into the surrounding dark. There is no need for brightness here. The village already knows where everything is. A row of buildings lines the street, quiet and resting. A small bakery sits near the corner, its sign dusted white. Earlier, it would have carried warmth into the air, bread, coffee, something sweet. Now it holds only the quiet of a finished day. The street continues, and the sound of water becomes slightly more noticeable. Not louder, just closer. Ahead, the harbor begins to take shape. The docks extend into the dark water in long, familiar lines. Snow has gathered along the planks, smoothing their edges and settling on the posts like soft caps of white. Boats rest in place beside them, tied securely, their shapes simple and still. Some are small fishing boats with narrow hulls and folded canvas covers. Others sit a little wider and lower in the water, carrying the calm heaviness of something built to work through weather and tide. Tonight, none of them move more than the water allows. A rope creaks somewhere nearby. The sound is faint, almost hidden, and then it's gone again. You step a little closer to the water's edge, where the harbor opens out into a dark, quiet expanse. The sea beyond the village is difficult to separate from the sky tonight. Snow blurs the distance. Horizon and cloud become one soft band of darkness. leaving only the nearest things clearly held in view: the docks, the boats, the lamps, the railings touched with white. A small boathouse stands near the first pier, its weathered walls painted a color that is hard to name in the dark. Its door is shut. A lantern hangs just outside, turned low for the night, its glow shining across the snow-covered threshold. Beside the wall, a stack of lobster pots sits neatly arranged, each one edged with frost. They look as though they have been resting here for years, winter after winter, always waiting with the same calm patience. You follow the line of the harbour path, which curves beside the water before bending around a cluster of older buildings. The snow is slightly deeper here, where fewer footsteps have passed. A narrow bench faces the sea, its seat completely covered now, inviting no one and still managing to feel welcoming. A row of mooring posts stands ahead, each rounded with snow, each reflected faintly in the dark water below. Across the harbour, a few houses climb the low rise of the opposite side of the village. Most are dark, but one or two windows still hold a faint amber glow. Not bright enough to call attention, just enough to remind you that somewhere behind those walls, a kettle may still be warm, or a chair still pulled near a fire, or someone still awake for a little while longer before sleep. The quiet here feels different from the quiet of the square or the streets. In the center of the village, quiet gathers around walls and doors and shuttered windows. Here at the water, it opens. It has space to stretch out. The stillness doesn't stop at the edge of the docks. It continues outward over the harbour and into the snowy dark beyond. You keep walking, following the shoreline at the same unhurried pace. There is no reason to turn back yet. The village seems content to reveal itself a little at a time. A narrow lane rises from the harbour path and passes between two old buildings, one stone, one wood. You take it without much thought, letting the village decide the route for you. Snow has settled along the stone steps in a thin, even layer, and your hand trails lightly against the wall beside you as you climb. The stone is cold, but steady. It feels older than the harbour itself, as though it remembers winters from long before these boats, these lamps, these doors. At the top of the lane, the village opens into a small square near the upper road. It isn't the main square, just a quiet pocket of space where a few streets meet. In the center stands a bare tree, its branches lined with fresh snow, so that each limb looks gently drawn against the night. Beneath it, a wooden cart sits tucked beside a wall, empty now, its wheels half covered. Perhaps it was used earlier in the day to carry baskets, firewood, fish wrapped in cloth. Tonight it rests exactly where it was left, holding no urgency at all. A small inn stands at one side of the square. Its sign hangs still above the door, and a lantern near the entrance burns with the faintest glow. The porch is swept, though snow has already begun to gather there again. Curtains are drawn behind the downstairs windows, but a soft band of light appears beneath one of the upper doors, thin and quiet, as if a room there is still warm from someone reading before bed. You pause for a moment at the edge of the square and breathe in the cold air. It smells different here than it did at the docks. Less salt, more pine, more chimney smoke, more of the quiet scent that snow itself seems to carry when it settles over stone and wood and sleeping gardens. Beyond the inn, a lane continues uphill toward the outer edge of the village. You follow it, passing houses tucked close together, their roofs thickening under the snowfall. Some have shutters latched tight. Others have small covered porches with boots left neatly beside the door, as though the day ended so naturally that there was no need to put anything away in a hurry. A wreath hangs from one doorway, its dark greenery wearing a fine layer of white. Beside another house, a stack of split wood is arranged under an awning, each log capped with snow like icing. A cat sits in the window of a cottage near the bend in the road. For a moment, it is only a shape, still and dark against the pale reflection on the glass. Then it shifts slightly, tucks itself tighter, and becomes part of the room behind it. The village accepts even the smallest movement, as though it belongs. Farther on, the houses begin to thin, and the road runs alongside a low stone wall. Beyond it, the land slopes gently down toward a frozen patch of grass and a line of trees that marks the edge of the village. Snow has turned the field into one smooth surface. No path crosses it now. No footsteps disturb it. The whole hillside looks as though it has been set aside for rest. You walk beside the wall for a little while, your fingers brushing the top stones where the snow has gathered. The cold is dry and clean. Somewhere below, back toward the harbor, you can still hear the faintest sound of water moving against wood. It reaches you now and then through the snowfall, a steady reminder that the village remains held between land and sea, even in winter, even in stillness. At the end of the wall, the road curves back down toward the center of town. A lamp stands there, slightly taller than the others, casting a pale gold circle over the bend. Snow falls through that light in a slow, quiet pattern, each flake visible for a moment before fading into the dark below. You stop beneath it and look back. From here, the harbor village feels gathered together in the best way. Roofs, chimneys, docks, windows, boats, all of it softened by distance and snowfall. Nothing sharp, nothing loud, just a collection of warm shapes resting beside dark water. You turn and begin making your way back down, not because anything is finished, but because the village offers more than one gentle path. As you descend, the harbour becomes visible again between the buildings, a quiet strip of dark water lined by low lights. The docks remain still. The boats remain patient. The snow continues falling with the same calm rhythm it had when you first arrived. And somewhere ahead, near the water, one small lamp still burns beside the boathouse, holding its place against the night. The path leads you back down toward the harbour, returning you to the quiet stretch of shoreline where the village meets the water. The snow continues to fall in the same slow rhythm, unchanged, as though the night has settled into a pattern it intends to keep. The docks are just as you left them, their surfaces now carrying a slightly thicker layer of snow. The edges of the planks are softer, the lines less defined, as if the harbour itself is being gently simplified. You walk along the nearest dock, your steps careful but unhurried. The wood beneath your feet feels solid, familiar, steady against the quiet movement of the water below. A faint shift can be felt now and then, not enough to notice unless you allow yourself to. Boats rest on either side, their ropes holding them in place with a calm certainty. One of them carries a small lantern at its stern, turned low, but still glowing. The light reflects in the water beneath it, stretching into a soft, wavering line that moves with the smallest motion of the tide. You pause beside it for a moment. There is no sound from within the boat, no sign of anyone awake. The lantern remains lit without urgency, as if it has been left that way intentionally, not for use, but for comfort. Farther along the dock, the boathouse sits as it did before, its door closed, its lantern steady. Snow has gathered along the edge of its roof now, forming a quiet line that mirrors the shape of the building below. The stacked pots beside it remain untouched, each one holding its place without shifting. You continue past, following the dock to where it ends over the dark water. From here, the harbour opens again, wide and quiet. Snow falls into it without a sound, disappearing the moment it touches the surface. The horizon is still hidden, blending sky and sea into a single, calm distance. You rest your hands lightly on the railing and look out for a moment. Nothing changes. And that is exactly what makes it peaceful. Behind you, the village remains just as still. The soft lights along the harbour path glow faintly through the snowfall. The streets you walked earlier have settled further into quiet, their edges rounding, their details fading into something simpler. When you turn back, you follow a different dock this time, one that curves slightly before returning to shore. The path feels familiar, even though you haven't taken it yet. That is the nature of a place like this. Everything connects without needing to be remembered. Near the end of the dock, a small wooden bench faces the water. Snow has covered it almost completely now, leaving only the faint outline of its shape beneath the white. It feels like something that belongs to the day, gently set aside for the night. You step back onto the harbor path and continue along the shoreline. The sound of the water stays with you, quiet and steady. It never demands attention. It simply exists beneath everything else, like a breath that never needs to be noticed. A narrow passage appears between two buildings, leading away from the harbor once more. You take it slowly, letting the space close in slightly around you as the walls rise on either side. Snow falls straight down here, undisturbed, settling evenly across the ground. At the end of the passage, the village opens again, returning you to a quieter stretch of homes and small courtyards. A single lantern hangs beside one door, its light dim and warm, illuminating a small patch of snow that has already begun to gather along the steps. Everything remains as it should be. Nothing asks anything of you. The lane continues a little farther before it softens into a quieter edge of the village, where the houses stand slightly apart and the snow settles more deeply between them. The sound of the harbor remains behind you now, still present, but more distant, like something remembered rather than heard. A small cottage sits just ahead, set back from the path behind a short wooden fence. Snow has gathered along the top rail, rounding it into a soft line. The gate rests slightly open, not from neglect, but as if it had simply been left that way at the end of the day, with no urgency to close it. You step through and follow the short path to the door. The porch holds a quiet stillness of its own. A pair of boots sits neatly beside the wall, dusted lightly with snow. A lantern hangs from a hook near the door, turned low, its light warm but faint. It doesn't reach far, but it doesn't need to. It simply holds its place, steady and calm. The door opens without effort. Inside, the air is warmer, though not suddenly so. It feels like a warmth that has been waiting, steady and patient, built over time rather than forced. The room is simple. A chair rests near the hearth. A small table stands beside it, holding an empty mug. A folded blanket lies across the back of the chair, its edges soft, as though it has been used often. In the hearth, the fire has settled into a bed of glowing coals. No flames rise now, just a steady, quiet warmth that fills the room without asking for attention. The light they give off is low and even, casting gentle shadows along the walls. You step inside and close the door behind you, the sound barely more than a soft shift of wood. Outside, the snow continues to fall. Inside, everything remains still. You move toward the chair and sit without hurry. The blanket comes easily around your shoulders, carrying a warmth that feels familiar, like something remembered rather than new. The chair supports you without effort, settling you into a position that feels natural, as if it had been waiting. The coals in the hearth shift slightly, a soft settling sound, then quiet again. For a while, everything holds its place. Your breathing slows on its own, steady and even. The warmth of the room settles in around you, quiet and constant. Beyond the window, snow gathers along the sill in a thin, even layer. A branch from a nearby tree rests close to the glass, touched lightly with white. It moves only slightly, just enough to remind you that the world outside continues in the same calm rhythm. The village beyond the cottage remains unchanged. The harbour is still. The docks are quiet. The boats rest where they were left. The lantern near the boathouse continues to glow faintly against the night. Nothing shifts. Nothing needs to. The quiet from outside carries gently into the room, blending with the warmth of the coals. The space feels held, steady, complete. Time moves differently here. It stretches without edges, without urgency, settling into a slow and even rhythm. Thoughts begin to drift. They come lightly, like the snowfall outside, and pass just as easily. Nothing lingers long enough to take shape. Nothing asks to be followed. The room remains as it is. The chair steady, the blanket warm, the coals glowing with the same quiet consistency. Outside, the snowfall has softened. The flakes drift down with more space between them now, each one settling without sound. The night feels deeper because of it, more settled, more complete. The village continues to rest. The square remains empty. The narrow streets stay undisturbed. The small lights that were left burning hold their place, unchanged and quiet. Everything remains where it was. Everything remains calm. You settle a little deeper into the chair, the shift so slight it almost goes unnoticed. Your shoulders loosen further. The warmth feels closer now, more complete, as if it has settled fully into the space around you. The glow of the coals softens. the edges of the room grow less defined. The quiet deepens. Outside, the last of the snowfall continues in a slow, steady rhythm, softening the village even further. The harbour remains still beneath it, dark and calm, holding its place through the night. Inside, the warmth stays. The chair supports you. The blanket rests easily across your shoulders. The night carries on, steady and quiet, without interruption. And gradually, without effort, you drift deeper into that stillness, carried by the calm rhythm of the village, until sleep settles in and holds its place.